Darcy?
Miss Elizabeth?
It is the most unremarkable scene in the sense of its banality, mundanity, its ordinariness in Pride and Prejudice, and yet it is brilliant, cinematic, poetic, memorable. The scene goes somewhat like this. Elizabeth, having had the acquaintance of Darcy and Bingley in their house due to her sister's sudden illness, is ready to depart with the now healthy Jane to her house. She approaches the carriage, curtsies to Darcy, turns to Bingley, and then curtsies again, hoists up the carriage. The camera zooms in on the moment when Elizabeth holds Darcy's hands. Darcy saunters away to his mansion, beholden for a millisecond by Elizabeth's reactionary, stricken gaze. The camera mulls over Elizabeth's face, containing subtleties of infinite emotive varieties, and then cuts to Darcy flexing his hand. This moment, these arrays of shots that I mentioned chronologically, has the world by the throat. And yet it is an unremarkable moment, because nothing happens here except the most commonplace and monotonous of a thing that could ever happen on planet Earth. A gentleman hoisting a woman up a carriage. What could be more ordinary, more unremarkable? And yet everyone reacts to this particular scene as if it is extraordinary, remarkable. Keep in mind, the movie is replete with drama and suspense and romance, and yet this is the scene that everyone cannot stop raving about. Why? What is so unique about this scene? Why not this
You
one?
expect me to rejoice in the inferiority of your circumstances?
And those are the words of a gentleman. From the first moment I met you, your arrogance and conceit, your selfish disdain for the feelings of others made me realize that you were the last man in the world I could ever be prevailed upon to marry.
Oh, honey.
Girl, security.
But her sister Elizabeth is very agreeable.
Perfectly tolerable, I dare say. Not handsome enough to tempt me.
Why not the scenes scattered throughout the movie of their intellectual conversations, having a sort of romance of the mind?
Doing our best to find fault in you.
Maybe it's that I find it hard to forgive the follies and vices of others, or their offences against me. My good opinion, once lost, is lost forever.
Dear, I cannot tease you about that.
Why not the scene when Darcy sends the most heartfelt letter that a man could ever write to Elizabeth, when they meet at Darcy's manor, when he aids her in the ensuing elopement of her sister? Why not the ending scene in and of itself? Why is it this moment? So simple and innocent, it is actually a crime that has rocket launched above every other scene in the movie and has everyone raving about it. Why? Obviously, the most practical and sophisticated answer is simply this. Considering the era, the custom, and the culture of the time, men were not allowed to hold women's hands without gloves. But Darcy does. He holds her hands and aids her up the carriage. But this, I don't think, warrants the classical credibility and integrity of this infamous moment. There has to be more to this, right? Consider this paragraph from one of my favorite books of all time that may prove to alleviate this confusion. A squeeze of the hand, enormous documentation, a tiny gesture within the palm, a knee which doesn't move away, an arm extended as if quite naturally along the back of a sofa and against which the other's head gradually comes to rest. This is the paradisiac realm of subtle and clandestine signs, a kind of festival not of senses, but of meaning. Let's break this paragraph down. The writer Roland Barthes is talking about the similar vignette of images that we've been presented with in the scene of Pride and Prejudice. Subtle, furtive imagery has been taken under a microscopic study and focus, imagery that is so small that they escape our notice and regard in our daily lives. We take these moments for granted, consider them insignificant, a squeeze of the hand, a knee which doesn't move away, etc., etc., or in the case of Pride and Prejudice, a certain look passed between two characters, brush of skin against skin, a flex of the hand, These are the moments that we don't care to document. The paragraph concludes with the phrase, a festival, not of senses, but of meaning. Wherein lies the contagion of the virality of this infamous scene in Pride and Prejudice? Every small, seemingly insignificant moment in this scene is impregnated with meaning. The scene celebrates not the senses, not the physical manifest world, but the metaphysical world. The world that cannot be seen or touched or smelt, but exists nonetheless subterraneously at work, enchanting us, holding us hostage as the audience and as active participants. The scene smuggles a dimension of every unsaid word and sentiment that Darcy and Elizabeth feel for each other subconsciously through these small subtle shots, so that the viewer is left enraptured, enchanted, intimately moved. So yet again, this scene is a celebration, a festival, not of senses, but of meaning. You could, in all seriousness, write a thesis about a twinkle in someone's eyes. You could fill pages and pages analyzing, conceptualizing, inspecting why someone's eyebrows twitched in a certain moment the way they did, why they moved a certain way, why they talked the way they did. A human is a bundle of meaning made bare and naked, if only studied. Consider the human body. It reverberates in small echoes of incandescent meaning from the vital passion and ardor that it harbors. The human body is a treacherous terrain of smoldering lava beneath which a volcano of unfathomable vitality. Sentiments of revulsion and pain and complaints and invidious truths lie unexhumed, buried in a powerful, formidable slumber that you dare not waken. The scene in Pride and Prejudice is just that. It is the hide, the skin of a vicious, invidious volcano. The insults of not handsome enough to tempt me perfumes the moment when Elizabeth curtsies to Darcy. The quotation marks, which Darcy could not possibly rejoice in, fighting against his better judgment, the need to encourage affection in Elizabeth through, dancing. The I love you,
Most are.
trembling in every nerve of his being and him having to push it aside and repress it. All these nuanced, complex, effervescent medley of emotions convalesced together and stricken his nerve so that walking away from the carriage, his hands are paralyzed, numb, stricken. These fissures of transient moments are just signposts signaling what lies beneath the costume of civil interactions. There is more depth to the human mind and the ripples it makes in the body than perhaps the Pacific Ocean or the Milky Way. I will end my pocket of weird introspection with a quote from God of Small Things. And the air was full of thoughts and things to say, but at times like these, only the small things are ever said. Big things lurk unsaid inside.